Senator Wong. We'll move to question time. Senator Collins.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. Minister, as I joined Australian diggers conducting Exercise Talisman Sabre this month, the Netherlands joined a growing list of countries calling on Australia to increase our defence spending. But as I said last night, if Australia's political leadership were completely honest with the Australian people, the case for increasing defence spending would be a no-brainer. In 2022, the Albanese government said it would set targets on raising defence spending as a proportion of GDP. The government has since backflipped on this commitment. Minister, why was an increased GDP target a good idea in 2022 and a bad idea now, given the global challenges have only worsened?
Thank you, Senator Collins. Minister Wong.
Well, first, can I acknowledge the first question from Senator Collins and congratulate her on her first speech yesterday. Can I say to her she would be aware, I would assume, that that we have increased defence spending over the forward estimates and over the decade, an additional $10.6 billion over the forwards and $7.6 billion over the decade. As the Prime Minister has made clear, we fund capability, and we are very conscious of the first responsibility of a government is to ensure we keep our people safe, we keep our nation safe. Critical to that and central to that is obviously ensuring defence has the capability that is required to deal with these uncertain times. And that is why we have increased defence funding to record levels, to the biggest peacetime increase in Australia's history. So I would also make the point, and that the senator was not part of the government which delivered this, that what we saw under the previous government was a lot of press releases, but very little capability, and in fact some 28 projects running nearly a century behind schedule. The cumulative slippage in capability acquisition under the previous government was 97 years. Now, the senator is one of those who does understand the strategic circumstances Australia faces. She would also understand, given her deep knowledge of the Pacific, the importance of all arms of national power being directed to Australia's national security, defence first amongst those, but also diplomacy, economic engagement, and she described it as a form of integration with the Pacific. Sorry, the senator described it as a form of integration.
Senator Collins, first supplementary.
Minister, it takes an appreciation of the Australian Defence Force to understand the pressures our men and women in uniform face and the sacrifices they make for our country. Minister, is it correct that the Prime Minister has never attended and participated in an Australian military exercise?
Minister Wong.
It's a disappointing question from a senator who I think actually has well, it is a senator who I think does have an appreciation of the importance of the role of the ADF.
Order. Senator Watt, I've called order. Minister Wong, please continue.
Well, thank you. That's because I held her in regard. And what I would say through you, President, to the senator is the Prime Minister absolutely understands what the men and women of the ADF do for our country. I think she may have been, amongst others, at the ceremony at the War Memorial, where the Prime Minister, as always, spoke, and he spoke about the importance of service and the debt of gratitude all of us owe all those who serve. I would also say I had the privilege over the weekend of standing with service women from 3 countries, 3 services.
Order. The time for answering has expired. Senator Collins, second supplementary.
Minister, while the Prime Minister spent 6 days in China visiting tourist sites to pay homage to past Labor leaders, He missed our biggest and most significant joint military exercise. Minister, why didn't the Prime Minister visit our troops at Talisman Sabre when he did make time to visit People's Liberation Army officers in China? Why does the Prime Minister think national security, defence and meeting our allies is somebody else's job?
Order. Before I call Minister Wong, I'm waiting for order. Senator Gallagher. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Minister Wong.
First, in relation to Talisman Sabre, senators may have seen that we had a UK-led carrier strike group with the largest warship in the British Navy, which the Defence Minister and I visited with our counterparts. What I was saying when I was speaking earlier was that I had the privilege of speaking with the men and women of 3 countries and 3 services who were participating in Talisman Sabre. Senator Ruston, maybe you could show them some respect. Maybe you could show them some respect. And that matters. Through you to Senator Collins, she would understand that China is a great power in our region and we need to engage. That is not to diminish any other relationship. We know who our strategic partner is. It is the United States. But really, I think they have not learned from the Dutton era, have they? They haven't listened.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Albanese Labor government's focus since being returned to office has been delivering on its commitments to the Australian people. Why is it important that government delivers on its commitments, and how is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitment to protect young Australians from the harms of social media?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Stewart for the excellent question. And as she references, the Prime Minister did announce last year that our government would legislate 16 years of age as the minimum age for access to social media. This week the Minister for Communications has tabled the rules for these world-leading minimum age social media laws. Starting from 10 December 2025, we will require social media platforms to take reasonable steps to prevent Australians under the age of 16 from creating a social media account. Following advice from the E-Safety Commissioner and broad consultation, Minister Wells also outlined which types of online services will be excluded from the legislation, including health and education messaging apps as well as games. Most importantly, President, we are placing the burden of action on social media platforms, not just parents or young people. Now, I have heard some criticism from some in this place about this policy framework. And I would say this, it is true that there is no solution which is perfect when it comes to keeping our young people safe online. But minimum age social media laws will make a meaningful difference. They also, President, are the right thing to do. The online environment can be dangerous, and these laws are about giving parents and carers additional support. Support, and I'm sure many parents relate to this challenge, support to help ensure that children won't feel isolated or excluded for not being on social media because their friends and classmates will not be on it either. President, building Australia's future includes doing all that we can to give the next generation of Australians the best shot at life. It means looking after the next generation, and the Albanese government is delivering on that commitment.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
Thank you, Senator Wong. During our first term, the Albanese Labor government also delivered on our commitment to make medicines cheaper, cutting the maximum price of a PBS-listed script from $42.50 to $30. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to deliver on our commitment to make medicines even cheaper for Australians?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Well, as you would know, Senator, when we came to government in 2022, about 1 million Australians were not filling their prescriptions because they could not afford them. They weren't filling their prescriptions because they couldn't afford them. This was the situation when those opposite were in government. So we delivered the largest increase in the price of PBS medicines in the history of the pharmaceutical benefits scheme, cutting the maximum price from $42.50 to $30, freezing the price at $7.70 per script for concession holders and pensioners. Now, colleagues, do we remember what the Coalition did when faced with the opportunity to help Australians afford their medicine? Can we remember what they did when cheaper medicines came before this chamber? They voted against it. They voted against it. They voted against cheaper medicine. They voted against more money in Australia's pockets. We on this side will not be deterred. We are this week introduced. We are going further.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. In November last year, the Prime Minister announced a commitment that a re-elected Albanese Labor government would cut student debt by 20%. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on this commitment, and what does this mean for people struggling with student debt?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, President. And as the Senator would know and his colleagues would know, the Prime Minister came to South Australia, the electorate of Sturt, and announced last year that a re-elected Labor government would cut student debts by 20%. We promised that this would be the first thing we would do when we were back in parliament, and that is exactly what this team has done. That is exactly what we have done, because we understand that getting an education shouldn't mean a lifetime of debt. 3 million Australians are getting a 20% cut to student debt, and millions more will benefit from our changes to the repayment threshold, so Australians can earn more before they start paying off their debt. And this is on top of our policy last term to cap indexation. But while we are cutting student debt, what are they doing? When this vote came on in the chamber, they were so divided they couldn't even bring themselves to vote. They couldn't even—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Order on my right. Senator Henderson.
Point of order on misleading the Senate. Labor did not cap indexation.
Senator Henderson, that's a debating point, and you know that very well. Minister Wong, please continue.
So while we are cutting student debt, you can't even bring yourselves to vote on it.
Time. Thank you, Minister. Senator Little, first question.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, the latest Closing the Gap report shows that only 4 of the 19 targets are on track, and critical outcomes like incarceration, suicide and child removal are going backwards. How can your government continue to claim to be delivering outcomes for Indigenous Australians when your government's own report is damning and shows you are failing them?
Thank you, Senator Little. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thanks, Senator Little, for the question. And Senator Little would be aware that the Productivity Commission report today in relation to updated on closing the gap. Obviously, we are making progress in some areas and insufficient progress in others, and the government acknowledges that. And I think you would have heard Minister McCarthy speaking about this publicly. 4 targets are on track to be met. So that is insufficient. Encouragingly, 10 targets are improving, and some states like Victoria and South Australia are making real progress. So that is obviously good news. Unfortunately, the Northern Territory is not, and the report shows that, in fact, there is less. The Northern Territory is going backwards. So obviously, closing the gap is a long-term commitment. It's a commitment I hope that can have continue to have bipartisan support, and obviously, the Minister is continuing to work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and the Coalition of Peaks to make a difference in the lives and life outcomes of Indigenous Australians. As I said, we have 4 targets on track, including children enrolled in preschool, Indigenous employment, seawaters and landmass subject to legal rights and interests or covered under Indigenous rights. But the targets that are improving, which do matter, are obviously life expectancy, healthy birth weight, attaining Year 12, the completion of tertiary qualification, those youth who are in employment, education or training, and Indigenous people living in appropriately sized housing. The four really concerning ones are those not on track and worsening. So early childhood, incarceration, which I know is something the Chamber has been discussing, Indigenous children aged up to 17 held in out-of-home care, and Indigenous suicide rates. And obviously, as a country, we need to do better on those.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Little, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Of course, we need to do better. Why does this government continue to talk about listening and reform while the reality is that under Labor, incarceration rates are rising, up 3.5%, Indigenous suicide rates are worsening, up 9.4%, and youth detention is up 11% since 2022. Isn't this more proof Labor governs with slogans, not substance?
Thank you, Senator Little. Minister Wong.
No, I don't agree with you, Senator Little, and I don't think any government of any political persuasion.
Senator Little, second supplementary.
Well, let's try this one. The evidence is there. The latest
I'm sorry, Senator Wong. I thought you had.
Bipartisanship.
I'm very sorry. I did not hear Senator Cash.
Order.
Order. Order. Senator Little, I think the minister's, beg your pardon, the minister has more to add on your first supplementary, and there needs to be silence across the chamber. Minister Wong.
Look, Senator Little, I may not agree with every policy prescription, but I respect your commitment on these issues. And what I would say to you, and I think you know this, that no government of any political persuasion has delivered the sorts of outcomes on closing the gap targets that we would want, whether it's your governments from your side of politics or ours, state or federal. We know that, and we have to do better. And I hope that we see in this term the continued improvement in some of the targets that we are seeing, and I hope the 4 targets you mentioned, which I was upfront about as worsening, are ones that we can turn around. We know that all of us, this parliament, governments of all political persuasions, state and federal, territory level, have to work together to try and ensure we do better on these targets for communities.
Senator Little, second supplementary.
The latest Closing the Gap report also shows that the target to reduce overcrowding in Indigenous housing is also not on track. Since the Albanese government was elected in 2022, how many new additional homes have been funded by the Commonwealth for Indigenous Australians in the Northern Territory? And what is the net increase in housing supply in the Northern Territory?
Thank you, Senator Little. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Senator, I will see if I can get more detail on the housing point and the specific issue of how many additional housing since we came to government in 2022. I would make the point that the information before me is that appropriately sized housing, which is target 9A, I think, I have listed as improving but not on track. So I will certainly get for you whatever additional information Senator McCarthy can provide in relation to that. Obviously that means we're not meeting the target, but I hope what my brief says to me is that it is improving from where it was.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Environment Minister, Senator Watt. The toxic algal bloom in South Australia has been wreaking havoc on our state, on our fishing industry, our tourism industry, our community. Our beaches may be closed over summer. Our beaches are littered with dead fish, dolphins, seals, rays. Isn't it true, Minister, that if this devastation was happening on Bondi Beach, you would have spent a bit longer than 11 minutes checking it out?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. And Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. It is a shame that Senator Hanson-Young is so intent on playing politics with this very serious environmental event that the bit she left out of her question was the fact that when I visited Adelaide last week, I announced $14 million in funding from the federal government to support the response and recovery to the algal bloom. You forgot that little bit. But you're right. I did while I was in Adelaide take the opportunity to go and inspect one of the beaches with the member for Boothby, Louise Miller-Frost, who's been advocating very strongly on this issue for some time. And I was also pleased to see this week Premier Malinauskas make further announcements about the joint federal-state response to this event, which included some of that funding, which will not only go towards supporting greater scientific research to understand the causes, effects and responses to this event, but also that funding will go towards supporting the many businesses who are impacted by this event. I think we've all understood the damage that this event has caused, of course, to the marine environment, which is devastating, as I've said before, and we've also seen the terrible impact that it's having on a range of businesses in South Australia, whether they be in the fishing industry, oyster farmers, tourism businesses and others as well. And so as a result of the work that we've done, this government is not sitting there throwing stones about this event. We're actually acting to provide the kind of support that South Australians have been looking for. So I'll leave it for Senator Hanson-Young to continue making her political point scoring about this event. What we're focused on is supporting the South Australian government to respond to the event, and the South Australian government was very clear in expressing its gratitude for the fact that they do have a federal government who's keen to work with them on this event.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson-Young, first supplementary.
Thank you. $14 million is something, but it's been pretty slow coming and it's pretty minuscule. It's going to hardly touch the sides of what our state is going to need. Minister, when will you fix the rules as requested by the South Australian government themselves, the fishing industry and the community, to declare this a national disaster, because that is what it is?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Hanson-Young, for the question. As I've pointed out in private meetings with Senator Hanson-Young, both before and after this event, and as I've said publicly, the government has approached this event as more like a drought than a natural disaster in the sense of a flood or a cyclone or a bushfire. And the reason for that is that when you think about those sorts of natural disasters, they are rapid events that pass through communities, leaving a very devastating trail, as opposed to this kind of event and as opposed to a drought, which are long-running events that do build up over a period of time, that can't be fixed in the sense of doing something to the event, and we are all waiting for the weather to intervene as soon as possible to disperse this event. But in the meantime, what we're providing is that $14 million as half of a $28 million package, and that is every single dollar that the South Australian government asked for. Senator Hanson-Young hasn't been able to come up with a proposal about what we should do other than get out there and issue press releases.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson-Young, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The algal bloom is yet another canary in the coal mine for climate change. Who will you make pay for the damage of this disaster? Because it's time that you made Santos and Woodside pay for the damage of their toxic fossil fuels. Will you make them pay?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Well, Senator Hanson-Young, I'm very proud to be part of a government that believes it's the responsibility of the government to provide support to the population when they are in need. So that's what we've done. We've used public funding, taxpayer funding, to provide support to the South Australian environment, to the South Australian community as they need that. We're not actually interested in playing the kind of political games that the Greens are around this to advance some sort of political point scoring. What we've actually done is work alongside the South Australian government to provide them with the support that they requested, every single dollar that they requested, within 24 hours of receiving the request from the South Australian government, and we're working very cooperatively with them to make sure that that support is provided. So again, if the Greens want to focus on issuing press releases, coming up with slogans, holding rallies about this event, that's your right. What we're actually about is actually providing the scientific research funding and the financial support that people who are being impacted by this event desperately need.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Darman.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. Since coming to government in May 2022, the Albanese Labor government has made driving gender equality a key national priority. Supported by investments in the care economy, in Medicare, equal pay and in skills and training, our agenda is ensuring that women are able to access work and job opportunities of their choice. Minister, why is the government investing in skills and jobs for women?
Thank you, Senator Darmanin. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Darmanin for the question, and it is an important one, and one that the government has focused on since day one. When we came to government in May 2022, we set about placing women's economic equality right at the front of our economic policy thinking, but as a priority across the government. And we have put in place a number of measures to make sure that we are driving equality across the economy and across the community. And they include, when we look at wages, skills and job opportunities, measures like our tax cuts, which have delivered tax cut for every woman taxpayer, with 90% of women better off under the reshaped tax cuts that Labor did in the last term. We've of course seen record low gender pay gap. 11.9% of
Order.
You don't like women getting a better share of the tax cuts there, Senator Bragg. You don't like the gender pay gap lowering to the lowest on record. Women earning $217.40 more per week on average than we did when we came to government. 600,000 new jobs for women, record high Labor participation. And why? Because we are making investments in early childhood education and care, and in the care economy, so more women can have more choices and more opportunities, and if they choose to work an extra day at work, then that opportunity is available to them. We've seen investments in skills like free TAFE, establishing the Commonwealth prac payment for teaching, nursing, midwifery and social work. That, of course, will support women who are undertaking those courses, and, of course, cutting the HECS debt. This morning the Senate passed that very important reform. We've reformed indexation, and women are 60% of the HECS debt holders, and the reforms passed by this parliament will help them enormously.
Senator Darmanin, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. We know the Australian labour market is highly gender segregated. Why is it so important to challenge this segregation in the interests of the Australian economy?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Darmanin for the question. We do have one of the highest gender-segregated labour markets in the OECD, and to us, on this side of the chamber, that's not good enough. We want to make sure that every girl and every boy in Australia gets to do what they want to do, that there's no barriers to them doing the training, doing the work experience or doing the job that they've always dreamed of doing. And at the moment that's not the case. We have a highly segregated labour market and we want to change that. We want more women going into the traditionally male jobs, and we want more men going into the jobs that have been traditionally held by women. And now, as we're dealing with some of those care economy wage issues, we are seeing more men go into aged care for the first time, and that is welcome. And we on this side of the chamber will always pursue equality. We don't want to see a labour market where anyone is held back, but particularly women denied those opportunities.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Darmanin, second supplementary.
Creating opportunity for women is in our national interest. It is not just a measure of fairness, it is a driver of our success as a nation. How is the Albanese Labor government continuing to work to support the aspirations of women around Australia?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Senator Darmanin, for the question, and you put it more eloquently than I did in my previous answer. But I can tell you what we will not be doing. We will not be subscribing to the views of those opposite, where we had this week the member for Longman Mr Young say men tend to be drawn to vocations that involve maths, physical exertion and construction and trades. Vocations like hairdressing, nursing, social workers and the like will always be more female-dominated. 2025 Liberal member quote from this week. We do not subscribe to that view. We also don't subscribe to views such as those of Senator Antic, who has said, "I think a little more patriarchy will help us out, not hurt us at all." Or that every angry gender studies professor who thinks they're going to crush the patriarchy has got some news coming. These are not views that are held over this side of the chamber. We want to see equality. We want to see equality for women, for men. We want opportunities for all.
Answering has expired. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Yesterday, it was reported that a tanker carrying fuel refined largely from Russian oil docked in Kwinana in WA. While sanctions on Russian products exist, the fuel that has arrived in WA was reported to have been processed at the Jamnagar refinery in India. As we sit today, there are 3 stored oil tankers filled with products also tainted by laundered Russian oil, unable to ship to Europe because the EU has cracked down on the type of sanction evasions we're seeing happen right now in my home state. West Australians need to be sure that when they're pulling the trigger at the Bowser, they aren't helping to pull triggers in Ukraine. What is the status of this fuel shipment, given the sanctions the government has placed on Russia?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Through you, President, as Senator Payman would know, we have imposed strict sanctions and other trade measures to restrict the import, purchase and transport of oil coming from or that originated in Russia. Last month, I announced our first sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet to help starve Russia's war machine of revenue. And as a result of the measures taken, direct Australian imports of Russian energy products have fallen from 80 million to 0 since before Russia's invasion. And obviously there's been bipartisan support for that. What Senator Payman references at a systemic level is what happens to energy products which enter via third countries. As I've said publicly, regrettably, the mechanisms we would need to track and monitor all energy products via third countries are not in place in those countries, and obviously we'll continue to look at what options we can utilise to place further pressure on Russia's oil revenues. I would note, I think the Senator referenced the European Union's ban announced on the 18th of July, which will come into place in January 2026. I'd note that the European Union has not yet issued any guidance about how that would in fact be implemented. I would also say, and I think the Senator referenced this, Australians do expect businesses to try and avoid their supply chains from inadvertently funding Russia's illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine. Certainly the government does call on businesses to uphold that responsibility. But the answer to the question, Senator, is one, we have sanctioned, we've increased those sanctions, including on the shadow fleet, but secondly, regrettably, there are not the mechanisms in third countries to enable all of the issues you raised to be tracked.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The Centre for Research on Energy and Clean Air found that 55% of the crude used at India's Jamnagar refinery comes from Russia. Since the invasion of Ukraine, Australia has imported $2.3 billion worth of fuel from these refineries, with an estimated $1.3 billion flowing straight back to Russia in taxes. Can the minister assure Australians that this money will not be contributing to the invasion of Ukraine?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Wong.
I think, Senator Payman, you're asking me to make an assurance about Indian refinery revenue. And obviously, you know, the Indian refinery, we are not the government that has responsibility for what occurs in the refineries that you outline. I really revert to my previous answer, which is, one, we have sanctioned Russia. Both parties of government have supported this. Secondly, we have now expanded those to include the shadow fleet. Third, we are looking at how we might further deal with the issue of importation from a third country. but at this stage the mechanisms don't exist for that to be tracked. Fourth, I would encourage businesses to ensure that their supply chains reflect the position of the Australian community, which is obviously very supportive of Ukraine and very keen to ensure that there is no support flowing to Russia for their illegal and immoral war.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Minister, as you've mentioned earlier about the European Union, will the government follow the EU's lead to close these loopholes that are available for third countries and send in Border Force to stop this fuel from reaching Australian bowsers?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Certainly we welcome the progress that the European Union has made. As I'm advised and as I indicated to you, Senator Payman, the announcement has been made. The start date of that announcement is actually January of next year. No guidance has yet been issued that I'm aware of about how it would be implemented. We certainly will be very keen to understand how the European Union seek to deal with the sorts of practical issues that I have described to you, and we'll certainly be looking at that and engaging with them as they work through that process.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Blythe.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. Minister, how many older Australians are currently on the National Priority System waiting for a home care package they have been assessed as needing?
Thank you, Senator Blythe. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President, and thank you, Senator Blythe, for the question. I acknowledge the Chamber's genuine interest over some time in ensuring that older Australians, older people in our community get safe, dignified and high-quality aged care, and it's why in the last term of parliament our government, and in particular the now Minister for Communications, did so much work in this area collaboratively across the chamber, passing the new Aged Care Act with support from the opposition, because this should be above politics.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Blythe, I didn't see you standing there.
President, the question was very tight. We're just looking for a number here. Thank you.
The question went to the priority list and for home care packages, and it asked for a number, and the minister is being relevant to the question. Minister McAllister, please continue.
Thanks very much, President. And of course, home care packages, Senator, have hit a record high. 306,000 home care packages, and they have helped cut average wait times ahead of that transition to the new Support at Home program, which, as you know, starts on the 1st of November. I'll take that interjection, Senator Ruston, because in March 2019, those wait times peaked at around 3 years. 3 years wait time in 2019 for a level 4 medium priority home care package. That's right. And the number.
Order.
Who was the Health Minister? Great question. But, President, we are quite aware that there is more work to do, and it's why the reforms that have been passed through this place are so significant and why our investments are so significant. We are looking forward to the circumstances where we can roll out more home care packages to make sure that people are getting the support that they require, because everybody, all Australians, deserve dignity in their older years.
Senator Blythe, first supplementary.
Thank you. In 2022, the now Health Minister called the home care waitlist a national disgrace. But since 2022, the home care waitlist has more than doubled under your watch. 87,000 Australians are now waiting for the care they have been assessed as needing. If the waitlist was a national disgrace 3 years ago, what words describe Labor's waitlist today?
Minister McAllister.
Well, thank you, President. Well, we indeed are very proud of the work that we are putting in, of the work that has been undertaken to resolve the challenges.
Minister, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Senators Gallagher and Watt. Order. Senator Polley. I'm not going to go around the chamber calling disorderly senators back to order. I called order, and I don't want to hear the level of shouting that we heard from the opposition the minute the minister stood. Minister McAllister.
Senators, last financial year the government invested over $8 billion in the home care packages program, and that compared to just $1 billion 10 years ago. Of course, we need to continue to invest in this sector because our population is ageing and more and more baby boomers are entering that time in their—
Please resume your seat. Senator Ruston, stop the running commentary. Minister McAllister, please continue.
As I was saying, Senators and President, this is an area that requires significant investment, and we are making those investments. Significantly more money, significantly more packages and significantly more people able to access the care that is being provided as a consequence of our investments, and there is more to come. And on the 1st of November, when the new arrangements kick in, we are looking forward to seeing further improvements again.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Blyth, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, considering the wait list has more than doubled since 2022, why have you withheld the 83,000 additional home care packages you promised before the election?
Thank you, Senator Blyth. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. Well, the new Aged Care Act will commence on the 1st of November 2025, and with it a new program will start, the Support at Home program. And from now until that new act commences, we will continue releasing home care packages each and every week to people assessed as needing in-home care.
Senator Cash.
And there will be a continuing high demand for these packages because our population is
please
aging.
resume your seat. I'm really sorry I've had to interrupt you so often. Senator Ruston, I asked you to stop the running commentary. I've called you to account more than anyone else. If you can't listen in silence, I invite you to leave the chamber. Minister McAllister.
It is important to note that people who are assessed as high priority and who need urgent access to home care continue to receive that home care package within a month. And people who are waiting for packages at assessed levels are able to access the home support program. But the truth is that on the 1st of November we will have a new program, and it is a really important step forward, and one that the government is proud of, and one that we hope that the whole parliament can be proud of, because it was a bipartisan effort to bring these reforms forward, because they were badly needed after a decade of neglect.
Minister, the time for answering has expired. Senator Whitten.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Minister Watt. Minister, how many permanent resident visas for people who have not become citizens are currently issued in Australia, and why isn't this information published routinely?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Whitten. I'm not sure I have that level of detail with me, but I'll certainly seek some guidance on that from the Minister's office if we are in a position to provide you with that detail. Yeah, I'm also not sure that it is correct that that data is not published, so I'll clarify that point as well. So if there's any ability for me to come back to you over the course of question time with that information, I'll certainly do so.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitten, first supplementary.
Minister, despite the government promising to cut immigration, the latest Border Force data shows that after excluding tourists and crew visas, there are 2.5 million temporary visa holders in the country on top of permanent visa holders. The latest available data says there could be 1.2 million permanent visas on issue. Minister, how many people in Australia right now are not Australian citizens, and how much more or less than 3.7 million people is it?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Whitten. Again, I'll see if I can get access to the specific information that you're seeking, but given that your question goes to overall migration levels, what I can tell you is that there's been a massive fall in what's known as net overseas migration over the 3 years since our government was elected. As you would have seen from outside the parliament, the efforts that we took around international students and a range of other categories. What that has meant is that net overseas migration to Australia peaked at 538,000 in 2022-23, the year after we were elected, obviously based on policy settings that we inherited from the former government. Well, that's a fact. And then as a result of the actions that we've taken over the last 3 years, the net overseas migration for the 12 months to the 31st of December 2024 was 341,000, down 37% compared to the peak in the year after we were elected.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitten, second supplementary.
Minister, Australia and my state of Western Australia is in a housing crisis. The number of Western Australian households that consider their homes unaffordable has almost doubled in 2 years. Just 48% of hospital emergency department presentations in Western Australia were seen on time. When will your government keep your promises and stop the mass migration program that is making life harder and more expensive for Western Australians?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Whitten. I couldn't agree more that Western Australia, along with the rest of the country, desperately needs more housing built. And Senator Whitten, being a new senator here, you may not be aware that on numerous occasions in the last 3 years, the Labor government attempted to pass legislation seeking to build more housing, and two of the senators who consistently voted against that legislation were Senator Hanson and Senator Roberts. So I would encourage you, Senator Hanson and Senator Roberts may no longer have the numbers in the One Nation party room, and I would encourage the new senators to grab the numbers and back Labor as we continue our efforts to build more housing. I'm really encouraged that we finally have a One Nation senator who seems to want to do something about building more homes. Maybe we'll see a change of approach from One Nation compared to what we saw over the last 3 years. So, Senator Whitten, we look forward to your support and your new colleague every time we move those motions in the future.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Ananda Rajah.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. The Albanese Labor government was focused on strengthening Medicare and delivering cost of living relief in our first term of government. That included record investment in bulk billing, delivering 87 urgent care clinics across the country and delivering the largest cut to the cost of medicines in the history of the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. What action is the government taking in this term of parliament to strengthen Medicare and deliver cost of living relief to Australians?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Rajah. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, Senator Ananda Rajah, and I acknowledge your advocacy for Medicare and for public health in your time in the other place, and doubtless it will continue here. As your question notes, our government has already slashed the cost of medicines, and in 2023 we delivered the largest cut to the cost of medicines in the history of the PBS, with the maximum cost of a script falling to $30 from $42.50 previously. But we want to deliver even cheaper medicines, and that's why the government will make sure that a prescription on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme costs no more than $25. This is a 20% cut in the maximum cost of medicines under the PBS, saving Australians more than $200 million a year. And pensioners and concession card holders will have the cost of their PBS medicines frozen at just $7.70 until 2030. Now, you'd have to go way back to 2004 for medicines to be this cheap. And just to remind people, 2004 was when Rove McManus won the Gold Logie. It's the year that Facebook was launched. It's the year Casey Donovan won Australian Idol. And it is the last time that medicines were this cheap. Now, make no mistake, Madam President, this is what Labor governments do. This is what real cost of living relief looks like, because we know that healthcare should be accessible for everybody, no matter how much you make, no matter where you live. And it's why we will deliver $8.5 billion to expand bulk billing to every Australian to create a new incentive payment for practices that bulk bill every patient. This will mean 9 out of 10 GP visits will be bulk billed by 2030. We will also open another 50 Medicare urgent care clinics, and once all of these clinics are open, 4 out of 5 Australians will live within a 20-minute drive to an urgent care clinic.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Anandaraja, first supplementary.
When the Albanese Labor government was first elected, the Royal Australian College of GPs described bulk billing rates as in, and I quote, free fall. Free fall. What impact have the government's policies had to improve bulk billing rates, ensuring more Australians can see a GP for free?
Senator McAllister.
Well, Medicare billing data shows that our record investment in Medicare saw an additional 6 million bulk-billed GP visits in the year to December 2024. And that is an important achievement, especially because of what we inherited from those opposite. The previous government liked to inflate their bulk billing figures by relying on the massive number of COVID-related bulk billing during the pandemic, like PCR swabs and vaccines. The Coalition fudged the figures, magically producing a bulk billing figure of 88% just on the eve of the last election. And the Vice President, no less, of the College of GPs called them out and said that 88% figure was misleading and significantly skewed. And other experts described that as a great big lie, essentially rubbish and completely meaningless. We are taking a very different
approach. Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Anandaraja, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese Labor government campaigned on making the single largest investment in Medicare since its creation over 40 years ago, which will mean 9 out of 10 GP visits will be bulk billed by 2030. This approach received widespread support in the community and in the parliament. What progress has the government made on our plans to improve bulk billing rates over this term of parliament and beyond?
Minister McAllister.
Well, thank you, President. Well, on the 23rd of February, the Prime Minister announced our policy, the most significant investment in Medicare's history, an investment that will see 9 out of 10 GP visits bulk billed by 2030. And the Coalition, Mr Dutton and Senator Ruston, stood up that day and they said quite a few things. They didn't just say that they liked our policy, but they liked it so much, in fact, that they wanted Parliament to be recalled to pass it. Do you remember that? Remember that, Senator Ruston? That wasn't actually everything that Senator Ruston had to say on that day. She also said Peter Dutton, a man who has a very strong and proud track record as the Leader of the Opposition, but also as the Health Minister. So this was the Shadow Minister's favourite Health Minister. And what did she like most about Peter Dutton, one wonders? Was it attempting to introduce the GP tax? Was that the favourite thing, Senator Ruston? Was it ripping billions out of public hospitals? We stand by our commitments in the campaign, and the question is, do you stand by yours?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Sharma.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Senator, the Treasurer has said the government sees AI, artificial intelligence, as a huge opportunity for Australia. It's a key part of our productivity agenda, an absolute game changer. And regulation will matter, but we are overwhelmingly focused on capabilities and opportunities, not just guardrails. And yet, at the AFR AI Summit in June, Senator Ayres, the Minister for Industry and Innovation, promised to give unions a significant say over the AI rollout. So, can the minister confirm, do the Treasurer's comments reflect the government's approach to the opportunities presented by AI?
Thank you, Senator Sharma. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Sharma for the question. And it's an important question, the question around AI. And there are obviously a lot of opportunities that come with AI. But there are also challenges, and I think we need to be upfront about that. Senator Ayres and Mr Charlton in the other place are leading the work across government, looking at AI across the economy. My responsibilities are looking at AI across government, and I'm doing that. And of course, the Treasurer is included in all of those discussions, as you would expect, as our leading economic spokesperson. And we do believe there is a role, an important role for unions to play in discussions alongside with other stakeholders. And I've held a roundtable recently on AI. There is a lot of engagement from business community because They see the opportunities and challenges as well, and indeed in the last few weeks I've spent time with a number of the big companies in Australia who are implementing AI across their businesses, and all of them talk about working with their employees through one way or another, including with union representatives, because this is an issue that workers deserve to have a say on and to be involved in. This is a big change coming to workplaces. It's happening already. There is no going back. But there is a responsibility on us as leaders in government, in business, across society to ensure that working people and jobs and the opportunities that come with AI are considered fully and different viewpoints heard. We make no apology for that at all. I would encourage the opposition to engage in similar terms. I mean, if you want to be serious about the opportunities and challenges of AI, get involved, talk to unions, talk to business and understand what is happening.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Sharma, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Thank you, Senator. The ACTU are promoting a plan for companies to be banned from receiving government funding and contracts if they don't meet union demands on AI implementation. So, given Minister Ayres' previous commitments to the unions, has the government made any concessions to the ACTU on AI ahead of the Reform Roundtable?
Thank you, Senator Sharma. Minister Gallagher.
Well, I don't think it's any surprise that the ACTU would advocate on behalf of their members and their member organisations, just as the Business Council come in and do the same. AI group, whether it's any stakeholder representation group, of course they do. The government is keen to work with business and unions on how we manage and respond to AI across the economy. We want to find consensus where there is, and we want to deal with some of these challenges. Every country is dealing with them. Australia is no different. But to suggest that the ACTU shouldn't have a voice or that workers shouldn't have a say or be consulted or have a real influence on our thinking, I think is ridiculous, and it will relegate you. Those views will relegate you to the opposition benches for years to come if that's the view that you hold. Workers have a right to have a say. Business has a right to have a say. Government should listen to all of that and find a sensible path through it.
Expired. Senator Sharma, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thanks for that answer, Minister. Can the minister rule out that productivity-stifling concessions on AI have not and will not be made to unions in advance of the Reform Summit, and that outcomes won't just be another stitch-up like the last Jobs and Skills Summit?
Thank you, Senator Sharma. Minister Gallagher.
Well, of course, as Senator Sharma will know, the opposition are being represented at the Productivity Roundtable. So I think that imputation, the imputation that there's a stitch-up and all of that sort of language is very regretful, because the opposition have been given a seat at the table to engage in those discussions. We think there's a lot of opportunity that comes from bringing stakeholders together in that kind of environment to find areas of consensus and to work out ways through it. So we are very optimistic about the Productivity Roundtable. We hope that every invitee comes with ideas, but also prepared to listen to alternative views, and the opposition is going to be represented there. I guess it's over to the opposition whether they want to come with fully formed views like that disengage from the real opportunities, or whether they come with a willingness to listen. It's over to you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon.
And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing, Senator Ayres. In its first term, the Albanese Labor government prioritised building more homes. They don't want to hear it, do they? More than 500,000 homes have been built.
Senator Sheldon,
Senator Sheldon was elected in May 2022.
Resume your seat. Order. Order. Please continue. Please continue, Senator Sheldon.
This sits alongside making it easier to buy and better to rent as one of the pillars of the government's $43 billion housing plan. Why is it necessary for the government to increase the supply of housing?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Before I call the minister, order. 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 Senator McGrath, I just called order. Minister Ayres.
Well, I'm very grateful to Senator Sheldon, President, for that question, although I've been hoping for the whole fortnight that Senator Sharma would ask me the question that he just directed towards Senator Gallagher, because I have to say, his opinion piece in the Financial Review.
Please resume your seat. Minister Ayres. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Order. Senator Ruston.
A point of order on relevance. I think the minister perhaps should be brought back to the question.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Order. Order across the chamber. Minister Ayres, I have not called you. Minister Ayres, I am going to direct you back to the question. Thank you.
Just one little joke. Just one little joke. I really am grateful for this question, though. We have been absolutely focused as a government on delivering new homes and the homes that Australians need. 28,000 homes under construction or in planning now. Now that contrasts with what happened under the previous government under their program. 373 homes over a decade. Now, the truth is, Australians know when they build a home, you know what? It takes time to build a home. It takes time to build a home. You've got to work your way through it. You've got to work your way through it. And you know who agrees with us? You know who agrees with us about housing supply?
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Those on my left might find this amusing. I do not. It is my job to keep order in this chamber, and you are making it incredibly difficult. If you can't sit in silence, leave the chamber. Minister Ayres.
Thanks, President. And you know who agrees with us? It's Senator Bragg, who Senator Cash referred to yesterday as Braggy.
Senator McGrath.
Braggy. I don't know whether it's Braggy with an IE or Braggy with a Y at the end.
Minister. Order. Order. Senator Ruston.
To not answer questions.
I've called you, Senator
On a
Ruston.
point of order, you think the minister might be able to answer his own
point of order, Senator Ruston.
He's not being relevant to his own question.
Senator Ruston, there is an incredible amount of comment from the opposition side, and as you are well aware, the minister can take those comments. I would like the question to be answered. I'm sure you would as well. That requires all of you on the opposition benches not to interject. Minister Ayres.
Got a silent case.
He said we need to find a way to unlock supply. Otherwise, we're going to make the problem worse. That was his view a few months ago. Oh, Braggy. We don't call him Braggy over
Senator
here.
Ayres.
We call him home blocker. That's what this guy's all about. Home blocker.
Senator Ayres.
PLOKKA, home blocker.
Senator Ayres, order. Order. I am going to ask you to withdraw.
I withdraw.
And please continue.
And why are we working so hard with the states, with developers, with local government, with investors to deal with the questions of supply? Because in substance it matters, because it's about actually doing
Thank you, Minister.
things.
Your time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
Industry expects the Albanese Labor government's build-to-rent legislation will deliver 80,000 new rental properties. What impact will this policy have on renters and Australians hoping to buy a home?
Minister Ayres.
80,000 new high-quality homes just for renters. Thousands of affordable tenancies with caps on rent. Access to secure long-term rentals will change the lives of hundreds of thousands of Australians. men and women, little kids, lives changed. And how does Senator Bragg and the coalition describe this life-changing, nation-building scheme? A nightmare, he says. A nightmare. A foreign investor tax cut. Now the Liberal Party of Australia is opposed to foreign investment. Like, what on earth is going on? What on earth is going on in terms of ideological consistency over there if you're opposed to investment in housing, in development, in building projects, in developing Australian construction projects? You have entirely lost your way. Entirely lost your way. The same senator who said in his first speech our tax system and broader policy settings—
The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government has a wide range of policies to increase housing supply. What progress has the government made on its commitment to make sure all Australians have access to safe and secure housing?
Minister Ayres.
Everybody deserves a decent home. And what Senator Bragg said was our tax system and broader policy settings must encourage foreign investment. And his first speech, he meant it then, he doesn't mean it now. It's a symbol of the sort of inconsistency and hyper-partisanship of this show. We have got straight to work from our first term in government. Straight to work. We took the Commonwealth from being a negligent bystander under the previous government to a government with the boldest and most ambitious housing program since the Second World War. In 3 years, we've invested $43 billion in housing, compared to just $5 billion in the long, turgid decade before of negligence and absolute disengagement with building new homes for Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Wong.
I ask that further questions be placed on notice. President, I have some further information in relation to the question asked of me today by Senator Liddle, which I might simply read into Hansard. The Commonwealth is delivering on a shared commitment with the NT to improve housing for First Nations people in remote communities. Under the historic $4 billion housing agreement, up to 2,700 homes will be built over the next 10 years to reduce overcrowding and improve living conditions across 73 communities and 27 town camps. In 24-25, a record 222 houses were delivered in remote locations in the NT. This builds on the 206 completed in 23-24 and the 257 houses completed in 22-23. Also, in question time on Monday, the 28th of July, I undertook to provide further information in response to questions asked of me by Senator Bragg in my capacity as the Minister representing the Prime Minister relating to the Construction, Forestry and Maritime Employees Union. I've written to the Senator to provide additional information, and I table my letter to the Senator for the information of all senators. I thank the Senate.